How's it going, everybody? This is Juan Galt with Crypto TV, and I got a very special show for you guys today. I had a pretty good conversation with Giacomo Zucco, who is one of the co-founders of the B Foundation, a new Bitcoin, unofficial Bitcoin foundation of sorts that was announced recently in Riga, Latvia, with a huge amount of very well-known Bitcoin influencers, celebrities, entrepreneurs supporting them in various ways. And they are, well, they're doing some very interesting work. They're not, dewy-eyed idealists. They're realists and entrepreneurs. But there's a lot of controversy, and there's certainly very many good reasons why people should be concerned and skeptical and cautious about any kind of Bitcoin foundation. So I got the chance to ask him some of the tough questions that I heard when talking to people about the topic. And they are, well, you're about to hear them. Special thanks to the Crypto Show, who will always also be publishing this show. They do a huge amount of content on all kinds of crypto-related, anarchy-libertarian, and general freedom-oriented topics, so check them out. And special thanks to Parallelipolis for putting together quite the conference in Prague, bringing together a great deal of crypto anarchy, crypto libertarian, crypto freedom-oriented celebrities and influencers. It was a very powerful conference. Definitely check out their content. They have an incredible place in Prague. It's the House of Trezor, the place where Trezor came out of. And yeah, they put on a great conference. So kudos to them. Check out their content. And if you like this kind of content, please support our show. Please let us know that you like it, what you don't like. Subscribe and definitely tell the world about it. That is a huge deal for us. And if you donate, if you want to make any kind of donations, that would be incredibly welcome. As you know, there is no money in journalism. You can find me and all my work at juangalt.com. That's JUANGALT.com. So thank you for your attention and enjoy the show. Giacomo, for people that don't know you, tell us a little bit about your work in the space and what you're up to.
So in 2011, I started to meet Bitcoin, encounter Bitcoin in different fields of my activity. I was a political activist in libertarian, let's say, activist movements, and I started to encounter Bitcoin both in privacy-related fights, like WikiLeaks fights and stuff like that, cypherpunk typical fights, and in Austrian economics, anti-central banks, sound money battles. So Bitcoin was popping out everywhere, and it also started to pop up in my technology work. I was working in Accenture as a technology consultant in payment, and I started to hear about Bitcoin as well there. So in 2013, I quit the corporation I was working to, and I participated to several startups in the space. One of that notably was Green Address Wallet in 2000. Green Address Wallet.
Green Address
it's
Wallet.
Not Green Wallet. Many people call it Green Wallet, but so probably it would be a better name. But the name is Green Address.
Okay.
And other activities in Panama, Switzerland especially. And then in 2015, I realized that I wasn't satisfied with startups because basically there is not a good way to make a profit for cool Bitcoin startups yet. So imagine a wallet. If you are open source, you cannot profit on intellectual property, of course. If you are open source, you cannot have like lock-in fees for the users or advertising because people can just fork it out. And you cannot sell users' data because if it's a good Bitcoin wallet, you're respecting the privacy of your users. So basically, the classical startup monetizing strategy were not working. And all the things that were working for monetization were boring, like exchanges. It was very boring. So in order to stay on the cool stuff but making some money, I created a consultancy company in 2015 and a non-profit activity. And the idea was basically to use the money to sponsor Bitcoin research and development for free. In return, I was giving exposure to the best people. I was spending my time with the best people, understanding what they do, and I was packaging and selling this information as consultancy and education to big clients, especially incumbents, banks, insurance companies. So, which was anyway appreciated by the experts, because the Bitcoin experts are not jealous usually of their knowledge. They like the fact that a big bank, instead of experimenting on some shitty Ethereum dApp, can actually start to sell Bitcoin certificates with good security standards. So it's a win-win if the big incumbents start to adopt good Bitcoin practices like open timestamps or stuff like that, or Lightning, and in return I can use that money in order to fund the activity.
Right.
So that was the last 3 years were basically like that.
Gotcha. And when we talk about the Bitcoin community, or the Bitcoin community is a word you'll hear sometimes. What areas of the community do you engage in? Who are you? What cities are you seeing Bitcoin activity? And just kind of curious of your sense, because maybe I wonder if this space has become big enough that you can have the network is maybe fragmented at the social level, but at the blockchain, Bitcoin is helping us scale beyond the social consensus.
I think it is. I think that right now you cannot strictly speak of a Bitcoin community in a very precise sense. Now you have people using Bitcoin, and they are very different in their ideologies, and that what should be. I mean, when you are promoting, for example, let's imagine gold standard, you can see the gold bugs community because it's a minority. But when people were using gold standard, there was no gold community. So it's expected that if Bitcoin succeed, you don't have any more. Right now, you don't have an internet community. Internet works, and everybody is part of the internet community. But there are some kind of ideological and technological groups forming. I think that from the ideological perspective, you still have the hardcore cypherpunk core of the movement. So people especially interested in financial privacy, financial sovereignty, censorship resistance, and stuff like that. And you have the monetary people. So the people, let's imagine the people right now promoting the Bitcoin standard book from Saifedean Ammous, people interested in the monetary development of Bitcoin. Then you have the techies, people that are not really interested in cypherpunk crypto anarchism or in monetary policy and sound money harmony. They're more interested in the cool technology, the cool development. I think that this last community overlaps with altcoins, especially Ethereum and other kind of shitcoins, while the other two communities are more focused on Bitcoin, maybe with some exception for Monero in the cypherpunk movement, but they are more focused, they are more overlapping with Bitcoin itself, while the techies are easily distracted, let's say. Everything which is new and shiny can easily distract a Bitcoiner if the only reason he was involved in that was the technological coolness of it.
Yeah, that's a great layout, very interesting layout of the community, the different types of people.
Well, maybe I could add the random traders, the casual traders, the traders, people that is not interested in any of the areas above. They just want to trade new assets. They could do the same with Forex or stock market. The reason they do it with crypto is that because crypto is more volatile, there is more informational asymmetry, so you can scam people easier, and you can basically do more insider trading and stuff like that. And it's more permissionless, like you don't have to register, you don't have limits, you can be more dodgy about regulation. So this is another community. I don't think this community is heavily overlap with the Bitcoin community. This is more the crypto community, and it's something that we don't really see very, very close to us, with very few exceptions.
Okay. The B Foundation. You've been talking about it. You've been doing introductions. You did a speech here at the Institute of Crypto Anarchy. So let's maybe do like a brief introduction of the B Foundation, and we'll just go straight to the hard questions. So
So the B Foundation is basically, it starts from my experience. I wanted to do arbitrage between big business and incumbents and investors and the Bitcoin development. So my point was Bitcoin development, which doesn't mean Bitcoin core protocol development. It mostly means Bitcoin development on top, like application, user experience, practices, tools, libraries. This kind of development is seriously underfunded because the open source model is great for many things, but it's difficult to, the money is difficult to get for open source free community development.
You're talking like application level development, not protocol level development.
Not protocol. I mean, protocol level is important as well, but I think that if Bitcoin is going to succeed, protocol layer will go to ossify and to stop evolving. At least, I mean, you don't have TCP/IP version for developers, active developers. You have maintenance, bug fixing, but that's all. You don't. There is no one whose job is to be a TCP/IP developer. So the protocol TCP/IP is fixed. With Bitcoin, in the next years, we will see some evolution, like soft forks like Schnorr and Graphroot, Taproot. So there's still stuff to do. Cgash no input for L2, but I look forward for having more activity on top. So notarization, open timestamps, Lightning Network, Lightning integration, Lightning apps, scriptless script, good wallet, mixers, Tumblebit, a lot of stuff on top. So this stuff is difficult to fund. And on the other side, I was seeing incumbents desperate to find good ways to spend money on research and development on blockchain. So they're wasting the money on something stupid, and you need the money elsewhere. So my goal was to try a way to do arbitrage between these. I started with a for-profit company with the Red Hat model. So basically, you pay the company for consulting. The company will use part of the money for supporting the initiative. But this is very difficult to scale, and it has some problems of conflict of interest. The alternative model is like the Linux Foundation, which is basically you create a centralized structure that will take care of the donation part in behalf of the business entity. So the business entity is not taking care directly of the sponsoring of the open source part. They are donating to the foundation, which is employing the funds. But this is very dangerous politically, and I think that many of the reactions that we will probably discuss about the B Foundation was that we weren't able to differentiate what we are going to do from the Linux Foundation kind of activity, but it's different. And the last idea, the third method is basically don't do anything, just buy people will just buy Bitcoin and develop on Bitcoin to get richer, which is something that can work, but it also has a lot of free riding problems, so it's not super effective. So what I wanted to do was to create a way to do that in a scalable and systematic way. Alena Vranova, at the same time, the former CEO of Satoshi Labs, she wanted to create a structure to do that, but also to promote Bitcoin to a marketing level, because her considerations were that basically there is a lot of people right now wasting resources, both economical, financial resources, investing in shitcoins or in stupid private blockchain projects, and a lot of developers, junior maybe web developers, wasting their time and reputation on Solidity dApps or stuff like that with no future. So when instead they could just create a good Node.js website with a Lightning integration or something like that. So we joined forces, and we started to discuss with other people with the same problems. Like, well, I will not give the names, because I was criticized to even from using too much famous names in order to attract attention. So let's leave it at that. Many famous people in the space had the same goals and the same problems, and so we created a joint effort that is not going live from a legal point of view with this foundation in Liechtenstein, and from a technical point of view with a website that will allow donors to donate to specific project with a hierarchical tree of projects that we will maintain and keep low entropy.
Let's talk about decentralization versus centralization for a moment. It seems to me there's kind of this meme gone wild in the crypto space that you need to decentralize everything, and decentralization for decentralization's sake, and a complete opposition to anything that remotely looks centralized, or you could define as centralized, which is kind of silly, because to take it to the full extreme, the ultimate form of decentralization is death. You know, become disintegrated. You know,
Yeah.
so that
I
atomic
completely
bomb.
agree.
You know, that's the ultimate decentralization. So it gets ridiculous on the edges. The purpose of decentralization, to my knowledge, was to create defense in order, like a defensive system for the immutability of Bitcoin against powerful superstructures.
I
Like
completely agree. Yeah, it was a defense against external attacks like censorship by the state. So Napster was taken down because there was a company to take down and a server to take down. While BitTorrent cannot be taken down. So the decentralization of BitTorrent is worse from a technical point of view, but is better because you cannot take it down. And also a defense from internal bad incentives like the tendency of any central bank to create inflation or debasement. So since you want to protect the monetary system from internal bad incentives, from external censorship, you need decentralization just for that. But anytime you have decentralization, you also have, basically, you reduce the fragility, but you also reduce the efficiency. You have something highly inefficient, and ultimately, as you said, the perfect decentralization is nothing. Imagine just Bitcoin itself. Bitcoin now has to be the most decentralized as possible because it will have to face a lot of powerful adversarials. So that's the reason he has to stay decentralized. But Satoshi Nakamoto had to act in a very centralized way at the beginning. Imagine Satoshi coming to propose the idea and then just saying, I will not write the code because it will be centralized. I will not set the 21 million limit myself because the limit must emerge in the centralized way. I cannot write software because anytime I write software, it's me writing software. And it was actually a centralized point of failure for the project for almost 2 years. And it was necessary. It was reduced in time and mitigated by the pseudonymity, but for 2 years, Bitcoin was completely centralized in its figure. That's why altcoins right now are going to stay very centralized. So decentralization is not a goal. Decentralization is a tool to reach the goal of censorship resistant. And when we don't need censorship resistant, we don't need decentralization, and we are better off centralized. The worst case is many altcoins or blockchain projects in which you have the worst of two worlds. Like you have all the inefficiency of something decentralized, apparently decentralized, but all the fragility of something which is actually centralized. Think about Ethereum. You have all the cost. So running an Ethereum dApp is 80 million times more expensive than running the same code on Amazon AWS, but you don't get any censorship resistant because if some Ethereum dApp is doing something highly illegal, the NSA or whatever can just call the Ethereum Foundation and force them to push some kind of backdoor in a code that is not reviewed by anybody, is easily updated almost automatically, and full nodes in Ethereum are probably 20 or something like that because it's impossible to run a full node in Ethereum for normal people.
Probably more than 20, probably a couple thousand at least, but like it's
full
still
node, no, full archival
full
node
nodes.
in Ethereum. If you try to run it, you need a lot of resources because basically the Ethereum blockchain is growing faster. You can sync it. You cannot stay in sync. There is a good report by Jameson Lopp trying to run an Ethereum full node for BitGo, and it was hell with BitGo resources.
With BitGo.
Imagine a random user. So right now I think that they are running one archival full node in, for sure, Ethereum Foundation, Consensus, maybe some big business like BitGo right now after all the effort of Jameson, but not much more. That means that the ability for the central planners to control Ethereum is high, but still you have all the inefficiency of something which is apparently decentralized, which is a paradox. They are trying to get the best of two worlds, like censorship resistance as Bitcoin, but efficient as as a MySQL. But what you get when you mix things is the worst of two worlds.
In the context of the B Foundation, what are the benefits of centralization, as you've yourself called it, right? A centralized
Yeah.
organization, and what are your concerns about how to execute this properly?
So the problem with decentralization of donations, so anybody gathering donation from big donors and trying to funnel this donation to projects, is basically that there is a lot of inefficiency, a lot of redundancy. So, for example, OpenTen Stamps, we try to get our clients to donate to OpenTen Stamps development. Other people like Francis in Catalaxy in Canada was doing the same, and to coordinate efforts was very, very difficult. There is redundancy, there is an inefficiency, noise. When you centralize things, you create a critical mass of exposition to the big clients. So the client that will donate maybe 100K to me and 100K to Francis is going to donate more than 200K to the joint effort, because of critical mass of also reputation. Reputation for a client, for a donor, reputation is important. You are centralizing, and so you are increasing our, let's say, reputational and legal liability. So in a way, it's more reassuring for the donor that we are concentrating the risk. Of course, as with this trade-off all the time, you also get a lot of political fragility. So if you have to corrupt the donation effort, trying to push for backdoors, and you have 15 companies doing that, it's very, very difficult to do. But if you want to do that with just the B Foundation, it's easier to do. That's why we don't think we will ever donate to core protocol contentious things. We will just donate to tools on top. We will also try to let donors donating directly to the project, so we will not be responsible to too many choices, and it will be difficult for us to become an attack vector. Also, I think that, as I said yesterday, I love the early reaction from the community that was of high skepticism and concern, because that reaction will help us actually to stay. I mean, it will also give us plausible deniability. If we become a very big hub of donation, let's say we in 2 years we attract $10 million. I'm exaggerating, for donation in Bitcoin, and somebody wants to approach us and tell us, you should stop this privacy project because it's too much anti the anti-money laundering laws. And we can answer, we cannot, because look, the community is keeping us in check. They are criticizing every move that we don't. We don't have power. We have power just as long as as we are compliant with the community, which, as we say, doesn't really exist. But it just takes very few Bitcoin maximalists trying to take us in check in order for us to be able to use them as an excuse. So I feel pretty comforted by the reaction we received, actually. There was the very healthy skepticism about that, and I think that that's more than sufficient for staying honest for a long time.
Well, that's great. I'm certainly happy that there was healthy skepticism. I agree that it's a healthy reaction, and I expect the conversation to continue, and we'll be able to expand on a lot of these questions. So development centralization is one of the concerns that I've heard. I've been talking to a couple of people about the B Foundation, and the concern is more or less like the B Foundation is going to start hiring developers that are going to start working on maybe protocol development stuff, or as you already talked about it, that's not really your focus. It's going to be more sort of code review and more auditing and reviewing the code than it is sort of actual.
Exactly. I think that many of these concerns will be better addressed by actions than, I mean, talk is cheap. I can promise everything right now, but in the next months and years, I hope that people will see the dynamic, and so they will be self-explanatory. Where the foundation will not hire developers. The foundation will just adopt some project, of course with a lot of discretionality in that process, because we can choose to sponsor one project and not the other. So there will be some kind of influence, but then this project will be the ultimate decision will be from donors. So if we build a hierarchical tree of project that we prefer, but that is not responding to the pressures of the market, so if developers are not interested in our projects, even if there is money, they will not develop. And if donors are not interested in our project, even if they are developers, they will not donate. So our suggestion has the ultimate check of the market, of developer time and Bitcoin whale money. So that's the first check. The second check is that we will, as we said before, we will stay away from any kind of scaling debate. I mean, I will personally still wait in as a private individual, but we will not use the project itself in order to push any change in Bitcoin. So if there is any bias in the action of the foundation, it will be status quo. Bitcoin as it is. We will not do something like WASP, UASF or something like that, because the foundation will mostly build tools on top, as we said, and as you said, code review. So instead of hiring core developers, we will put bounties for code review on Bitcoin Core. So if you find a bug, if you want to do a formal verification, that's fine. If you want to promote changes to Bitcoin protocol, we will probably not even go close to that in the tree of projects we will host.
Gotcha. And you're explaining this as an actual tree, or a symbolic tree of different projects and with different branches on their own topics and stuff. Will this money be going directly through them, or is it going to be kind of like you have certain, high reputable sort of, let's say, ambassadors for the particular branches? How are you thinking about that?
Both. So basically, the idea is that if you donate to a leaf, basically the leaf could be like just a single task, so a single bounty, so you know that the money will go to the bounty. If you donate to any parent of this leaf or any parent node, then there will be some discretionality, but not infinite discretionality. So the advisors of the specific node will be able to decide how to distribute the funds on all the branch below that, on all the children, but the funds cannot get out of the parent. Of course, for many donors, the effort of distribution is itself a burden. So many donors asked us and approached us, and that was expected, to donate directly to the root. So take this money and do whatever you want to do with it. As long as I trust you and I like what you do, I will donate more. So this is also a very healthy mechanism. Some part of this is required, because if we don't get root donation, then we cannot maintain the web domain and the legal. I mean, we will need some technical expenses, some let's say organizational expenses like an executive assistant and such, and some legal expenses like maintaining the foundation in Liechtenstein. It will be expensive. So there is a minimum level of donation at the root level that we will have to require in order to stay operative. But then after that, we will also push people to donate to the project. Of course, we want to incentivize some high level, because it's very, if you want to donate for a unit test in a Rust implementation of Lightning, you don't need us. If your goal is so direct, you can just use your developer, hire a developer and do that. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to donate only to the leaves. So it will be a trade. There will be a trade-off. Probably the people who will donate more money, more frequently, and more high level in the tree will get more exposition as donors in our website, and the people donating very few quantities, very seldom, and to a very low level micro task, they will get less exposition.
Gotcha. Are you guys thinking of using a multi-signature to manage those funds, or is it going to be more like sort of select individuals and reputation?
There will be definitely a multi-sig. One of the advisor, which is also expert from his business activity on this, will be one of the signer. One Liechtenstein legal company will be another, which is specialized in the third key solution, will be one of the signers. So the security of the funds will be, of course, high priority security. It will be part of the technical development of the project. And of course, I mean, part of my job is to consult banks on multi-sig about Bitcoin, and we will be very, very aware and very we will try to use the best industry standards about that.
Will you be joining using a company to hold these funds, or are you going to set up your own infrastructure, security infrastructure?
So the legal vehicle we decided to use require legally us to establish a council of people which have material access to the funds. So the council will be a selection of people, some private individuals and one company, in order to take the keys. Of course, we will give a very extended account of what we do as soon as we start. So far, we're not set up yet. So far, any preliminary donation is going to a personal wallet managed by Alena, which was like the first phase of the project, and she committed to move all the money to the company address, the foundation address, as soon as it's ready. It will not be a different wallet for every branch. So the reviewers, the advisors, they will select the project to finance, the test to finance or not, or how to distribute the funds, but there will be a single security setup at the root level.
This council was the word you said? The private individuals, will their identities be public or no?
I think they will, for legal reasons. Yeah, okay. We will accept donation by anonymous individual, and that was very. We put a lot of effort in that. We will grant donations and bounties to anonymous developers, so there will be anonymous donation and anonymous development, but the management of the funds cannot be easily made anonymous.
How much time do you guys have?
Pranzo. Okay. I will have a lunch, but we can continue.
Great. Yeah, like 20 more minutes is probably enough to do some good conversation here.
Can you write, please, Max? That,
because they were going to the lunch, but apparently it's not here at lunch.
So can you write or check if Max is there to ask him to delay a little bit?
Yes, they're at the lunch.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
20 minutes.
Thank you.
So this brings us to financial transparency. That's another one of the concerns, or at least the hopes that I've heard, that people, how will people be able to see how you're spending this money? What airlines are you using? Like, I understand there's going to be operational security concerns you'll have, but to what degree are people going to be able to audit your spending?
So of course, I cannot here commit to a specific solution, because much of this is still work in progress. But my idea, I can talk for myself, for my proposal. My idea is that at the beginning, the transparency will be pretty easy, because we will create a hierarchical tree of addresses matching the hierarchical tree of the projects. So we will basically have we will have a easy association between addresses and projects, and so you will be able to follow on chain what we do. So the set of keys will be centralized at the root level and decentralized on the multi-sig level, but it will be easy to follow the distribution of funds. That is something that is easy to do at the beginning, but as much as Bitcoin fungibility and privacy feature progress, I hope it will be very more and more difficult to follow people on chain. For example, if we start to accept Lightning-based donation, it will be not impossible, but for sure trickier to demonstrate what you do. You can do proof of payments on Lightning, but it's going to be harder and harder. So expect at the very beginning a super easy traceability, and in the long run probably we will have to add some kind of legal guarantees, because the technical guarantees of the blockchain tracking are going to get hopefully less and less convincing. Yeah,
that's something that you'll probably hear about more, the transparency of the spending and stuff. I wasn't there during the Bitcoin Foundation, how that happened and how that all played out. I was just starting to enter the space. But I've been talking to somebody that was there, and his concern was like, well, the Bitcoin Foundation raised a bunch of money. They had 5,000 Bitcoins, and then, their executives are flying 4 to 5 star hotels and paying themselves to speak at conferences, and then suddenly the money is gone, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably something that is going to be a concern. And anything that people saw and learned from the Bitcoin Foundation, they will try to get you to not do, right?
And that's super fine, and I expect them to do that. Also because you can really, I think that people, even good people, can rationalize bad behavior to themselves when the incentives are bad. So even if we are, if our intentions are good, after 3 years that you get this money and nobody really cares, you start to make choices that maybe you can rationalize to yourself as being helpful to the final goal, while actually you are just rent-seeking. So I appreciate that we will be under heavy scrutiny. We will do what we can to put legal and technical limits in order to protect us from bad incentives, but a cultural check and balance is also something needed. I want the people to keep me in check with that.
Awesome. It's going to happen.
I count on it.
Bitcoin community is healthy right now,
Yeah.
Hopefully in 50 years it'll still be strong, but yeah.
Yeah.
One of the other concerns that I've heard is centralization of media messaging. And the argument is something like, because the media in established mainstream media, organized media, are lazy, and so they want somebody to just give them clear, simple answers, and anything that looks like an official voice or an official foundation is going to be a magnet for media messaging, which could in turn have problems as far as what people perceive as Bitcoin, etc. How do you see that?
That's a concern. At the beginning, we were thinking about addressing that only with some declarations. Like, we declare that we are not official. Every time we start an interview, we say we are not representing Bitcoin. But that was something that the Bitcoin Foundation, the infamous Bitcoin Foundation, was also doing at the beginning, and the media just ignored it. And because they want to appoint a leader, they want to appoint the Bitcoin guru, the Bitcoin leader, the Bitcoin face, the Bitcoin creator. So one of the criticisms we received is that there are too many VIPs, too many known faces in this initiative. I think we can mitigate this by making the roles very, very clear. So the first presentation in Riga was somehow ambiguous because all these people was on the stage to present this initiative like it was like an all-star group. While seeing the project working, it will get more clear that, for example, this guy is only reviewing this branch on GitHub because he is passionate and expert and reputable on Lightning or on multisig security or on UX. So I appointed him as a reviewer of this branch. He will decide where the money go, but I can remove him. I mean, it's still very centralized, and so it will be. I hope it will be very fast clear that I'm not speaking in behalf of that people. Also, the decision to address address the media about. So the message of this initiative is: we are not going to help Bitcoin. We are going to help you adjusting to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is something that we do not control, that we can control. Is something that is, and we are just trying to teach you how to manage the coming of this new reality. So this message, I think, which is the core of our message to the people, I think is self-explanatory enough. Some people will try to, if this initiative is very, very successful, then some people will try to give some kind of officiality to this. I think that there are good ways to avoid to take advantage of that, and this also goes back to the incentive problem of before.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are considering taking a very sort of risk-averse political attitude In traditional politics, you might say a sort of center kind of political frame. Um, I mean, that's probably a good idea. Stay away from risky, like high risk. Like if there's another fork event, you know, people are gonna be like, "Well, what do you think is going on?" And maybe officially,
Yeah,
you know.
I think that well, it doesn't mean that we have to be like neutral or or keen to compromise. I think that the center of the message would be Bitcoin is. So it's a status quo bias. Status quo bias is nice because it cannot be used to push a malicious agenda. So if you protect Bitcoin as is, you can be very strongly opinionated about that, but in a way you are never wrong. So of course the worst case scenario is that the foundation is, the B is perceived as opposing some kind of good innovation. But that's kind of, I think it's honestly unlikely. Like there is a Schnorr soft fork with Musig, and we are not, we will not just take any stance there. If we do take the stance of status quo, which is, I think it's a policy that can manage most of the scenarios. In case of, for example, of Bcash, it's clear that we are not working with Bcash but just with Bitcoin, and it's clear to us what Bitcoin is. In case of UASF, for example, maybe the B as a project will not have supported directly BIP 148, for example, but that's natural. While the No 2X movement, the B Foundation, the B could quietly and consistently oppose the 2X attack on Bitcoin, because but it's not the goal of the B. The goal of the B is to explain people, especially investors, companies, corporations, and new buyers and final users and no coiners, what is Bitcoin and why they should care and what they can do to use Bitcoin properly and to adopt Bitcoin properly, instead, especially saving time and money from being wasted on shitcoins projects. That's the focus. So if I want to wait in about a Bitcoin scaling debate, I can do it as a private person. I will not stop giving presentation as myself with my opinions, even controversial. I will not do that with the B logo. I will do stuff with the B logo only when I will present the result of the donation campaigns, and that will be completely separate.
Okay. The last concern that I heard that we can probably talk about today is corporate partnerships. So let's say some company, some corporation, Bitcoin company comes to you and says, okay, well, we're going to donate, here's all this money, right? How do you see the potential for, let's say, collusion or picking favorites? I mean, as you said, it is centralized. And at the end of the day, like, there's infinite choices and scarce time. So you're going to have to pick some things as the best. And that's going to be sort of your judgment, and donors will decide whether that you have the proper judgment for that. But is there, is there some maybe dangerous incentives there that you?
Sure, there is a probability that donors can, especially in the long run and in repetitive games, they can somehow distort the structure of the project tree. I think that there are at least two check a mechanism, and one is that you don't only need donors, you also need developers. So if developers want to work on privacy features like I don't know, Stonewall, Stoneway, or Tumblebeat, or Join Market, and big companies they don't want because maybe they are embedded with government, so they want to donate only to Bitcoin tracking projects. Of course, we have an asymmetry there, but it's not that the money itself can drive the. So one thing we learned is that right now money cannot buy good Bitcoin developers. So Bitcoin developers became good Bitcoin developers because they were ideologically driven, and so you cannot really hire good Bitcoin developers just because you have money. Bitmain has a lot of money, and it is losing good engineers because it is anti-Bitcoin. Blockchain Info, Coinbase, they are losing good people because they of their anti-Bitcoin stance. So you can have donors maybe pushing for one direction, but we will also have developers pushing to another direction. And the second balance mechanism is that there's nothing stopping you from creating another analog initiative. More than this, the source code for the donation mechanism we will use will be open source from day one, something like MIT license. So nobody will legally or technically stop you from taking our website, creating the BS foundation as mocking us and doing the same thing. Some of our, no one of our advisors will have any kind of non-competition agreement. So our advisor can do the work of selecting project in our tree or in one other tree. So our lock-in power will be minimum. So if we start to diverge seriously from the will of the donors and the developers, it's clear that we will be easily abandoned and replaced by something else. So I'm not really concerned about that. The worst case scenario is that some big company can donate a lot of money on something which is not needed, and that's really the worst case scenario. And probably no developer is going to work that, because Bitcoin developers, the hodl and biddle option is still there. So it's not that developers are getting poor and they will depend on us to eat. They will still have Bitcoin. They will still be hodler. They will still get rich from Bitcoin if Bitcoin work. So they're still free financially. They will not be brought to do stuff they don't believe in, and that's very, very important.
Well, you guys open source the technology you'll be building to establish this sort of foundation tree. Like, you know, the GitHub strategy, if there's anything there that you can customize, or the website, or the key management side of stuff. Like, I like the idea of managing the you know, the branches of the master key, let's say, and tagging them, you know, as you mentioned it. That's really cool, and you know.
Yeah, it's not. I don't want to oversell it. It's not rocket science. It's something that any developer could do.
Okay.
But we're going to do that. We're going to maintain that. We are going to adjust it to the actual needs of the operation. So I think that after maybe when we push out some code, it will be trivial. But I think that after 1 year of activity, our code base will be kind of interesting to manage this kind of donation and development matching, and anybody will be able to clone it. So it's not going to be rocket science, but you have some kind of open VB clone package, and that's also a good check against us.
Yeah, it's a great check. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing the growth of the foundation and continuing the conversation. I think there is definitely some areas in Bitcoin that need funding, and there's no clear business model for it. I think there's a lot of research, like academic grade research, that I think we could do. You know, a lot of false marketing, right? Like I'm from Colombia, and I used to be into Dash, like, you know, the past 2 years ago, but now I've been seeing some really sketchy marketing. They're saying that Venezuela is sort of, people are using Dash Venezuela. And as a journalist, I'm like, okay, I don't buy it. But for me to actually find the truth there, I will have to spend probably like a few weeks doing academic grade research and then publishing it. And then why did I do that, right?
The banking lies and myths and try to filtering noises and trying to ally the signal is one of the marketing mission, and we use the marketing term a lot. That's also very triggering for Bitcoin hardcore supporters, because marketing is by engineers, by technical people. Marketing is perceived like something like inherently a little bit scammy, like you have to oversell things, while in our example, marketing is just a way to intend that the education we want to provide will be a simple, digestible, non-technical oriented education. We want to teach normal people why they should not invest in shitcoin. So it will be we will use marketing professionals. We will use part of the bounties to assign to marketing professionals the job of teaching people why they should not waste time and resources on stupid projects.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time. Any final thoughts?
No, I think that about this, time will tell, and I will be more than open to receive any kind of feedback, even very, very negative, especially funny, like the community has done so far, like fun trolling. I like that. I appreciate that, and I think that we will publish the. I look forward to the reaction of the people when we actually do some work and we watch the first flow of donation.
Right. So where can people find you and the B Foundation?
So me, I am mostly active on Twitter, Giacomo Zucco, my name all together, and the B Foundation right now is DB_Foundation on Twitter as well. And then I hope that people will be able to follow much of the stuff on the website and on GitHub when we are ready to launch the proper workflow. I will be running conferences. I will be after this at LabitConf in Chile. I will be like at Unconfiscatable conference in Las Vegas in January. So I will be still around, and I will be more than happy to meet people in conferences.
Do you have any sight of when we can expect some shipping, let's say, from the B Foundation? Like
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Sounds good. Right. Thanks, Giacomo.
Thank you.